Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. You know how much we love getting into the nitty-gritty of important topics.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
today we're really diving deep into the concept of deep work. We're going to be looking at Cal Newport's book, Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World.
I love that book.
It's a good one, right? We're basically trying to figure out how to make his ideas work for all of us. How can we use this concept of deep work to really unlock our potential? You ready?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's dive in. So, it's interesting to me that something as straightforward as focusing intently
Yeah.
can actually have such a massive impact, especially now when, it feels like everything is designed to distract us.
Oh, yeah. You're constantly bombarded.
Constantly. Think back to the 2012 U.S. presidential election.
Right.
Remember Nate Silver?
Oh, yeah.
He accurately predicted the outcome in all 50 states. Pretty impressive, huh?
Very impressive.
And he did it by basically using really complex statistical software like Stata. He was able to look at huge amounts of data
Right.
and extract those like golden nuggets of insight.
Yeah.
That's deep work in action right there.
Absolutely. That's a great example.
It's like finding that needle in a haystack, but the needle helps you predict the future.
Right.
It's pretty cool. And this kind of ties in with what economists Eric Bernolson and Andrew McAfee called the Great Restructuring. They wrote a book called Race Against the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
And their argument is basically that technology is reshaping the job market faster than we can even imagine.
For sure.
And in this new world, they see three groups of people who are in a really good position to thrive.
Okay.
All right, tell me, who are these lucky people?
Well, first, you've got the highly skilled workers.
Like Nate Silver, right?
Exactly. Like Nate Silver, they can take these, really complex technologies and actually know how to use them effectively.
Makes sense.
And then you have the superstars.
So, like, think David Heinemeier Hansson, cricketer of Ruby on Rails.
Yeah, exactly. He's a perfect example. Superstars are at the very top of their game, whatever their field is, and they can use technology to really broaden their reach, connect with more people.
Reach a bigger audience.
Exactly, a much bigger audience. And because they're so good, they can demand premium prices for what they do. Plus, technology kind of frees them up to work from anywhere.
Like Heinemeier Hansson prefers to work remotely.
Exactly. So they have that flexibility too.
Okay, I'm following you. So who's in that third group?
The owners.
Okay.
Think. Like John Doerr, the venture capitalist who invested early in, powerhouses like Google and Amazon.
Huge companies.
Huge. They have the capital to invest in the very technology that's driving all this change.
Okay, so this is all very interesting, but for those of us who aren't, tech geniuses or venture capitalists or superstar coders,
Right.
what does all of this mean for us? How do we make sure we're not, like, left in the dust in this new economy?
Well, Winjolfson and McAfee argue that to succeed in this rapidly changing landscape, you really need two core abilities.
All right, I'm listening.
First, you need to be able to learn difficult things really quickly.
Okay.
Like as technology is advancing, the tools we need to use, the skills we need to have are getting more and more complex.
So it's like the learning curve's getting steeper and steeper.
Absolutely. And second, you got to be able to produce at an elite level.
Okay.
It's not enough to just know how to use the tools. You have to actually create something valuable with them.
So like Einemar Hansen, again, knowing how to code wasn't enough.
Right.
You had to actually create something useful, something people wanted, like Ruby on Rails.
Exactly. You need to be able to produce something of value.
Okay, I'm with you. But how do these two abilities, mastering difficult things quickly and producing at a high level, connect with the idea of deep work?
That's where it gets really interesting.
I'm starting to see the connection here. To learn, touch things fast, and produce top-notch work, you can't be scattered.
Right.
You need that serious focus. Can't be switching between tasks or checking your phone every few minutes.
You're exactly right. K. Andrews Herrickson, who wrote Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise, he's considered the expert on this idea of deliberate practice.
Okay.
He says that really focused attention and getting immediate feedback are absolutely crucial for learning effectively.
So no multitasking, no distractions.
Right.
Got it.
But how does deep work actually make us learn faster?
Yeah, how does that work?
Think of it like this. You're building a mental muscle.
Okay.
When you concentrate intensely, you're literally strengthening specific pathways in your brain.
Really?
And there's this process called myelination,
Okay.
where a fatty substance called myelin, it builds up around those pathways, and it actually makes them work more efficiently.
So it's like insulating a wire to make the signal travel faster.
Yeah, a perfect analogy. The more we practice deep work, the better we get at focusing and learning complex things. Like we're training our brains for peak performance.
So we're building that mental muscle, getting better at focusing.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered how deep work helps us learn faster, but what about producing at that elite level?
Well, for that, let's look at Adam Grant, the Wharton professor.
Oh, yeah, I know him. He's published so much research.
Tons of research. He's super productive, and he's a total master of deep work. He deliberately schedules these long, uninterrupted blocks of time for his most important work.
He doesn't just like squeeze it in here and there.
No, he structures his whole day, his whole week, even his whole year around these periods of deep focus.
Wow, he's serious about it.
He is. He even has a productivity formula.
What?
It's high-quality work produced equals time spent multiplied by intensity of focus,
Okay.
and he's all about maximizing that intensity part of the equation.
Makes sense, but why does that super intense focus lead to better output?
There's actually some science behind that.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of attention residue?
Vaguely, remind me.
So Sophie Leroy, she wrote this article called Why Is It So Hard to Do My Work? And she explains that when we're switching between tasks, a little bit of our attention actually stays stuck on the previous task.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like our brains can't fully shift gears.
I can relate to that.
And this leftover attention, that's the attention residue, and it makes us less efficient at the new task.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's why Grant's strategy of having these like totally uninterrupted work sessions is so effective. He's basically eliminating that attention residue
Okay, interesting.
so he can stay in that flow state and produce high quality work.
Okay, I get it. So deep work sounds great in theory, but I can't help but think about people like Jack Dorsey,
Oh, yeah.
the co-founder of Twitter and Square.
Yeah.
He's known for multitasking, right?
Right.
And he doesn't seem to be a huge fan of deep work. So how do we explain that?
It's a good point. Dorsey's success might seem like it contradicts the whole idea of deep work,
Right, exactly.
but it's important to remember that he's an exception.
Okay.
CEOs like him are basically like decision-making machines.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly taking in information, making quick decisions based on the input they're getting from their teams.
So their work is more about staying connected,
Yeah.
making those split-second decisions
Exactly.
based on that constant flow of information. It's a very different type of work than what most of us do.
Absolutely. Most knowledge workers, they don't function the same way CEOs do, and they probably shouldn't try to.
Right.
The demands are different, the rewards are different. It's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, so even though there are some successful people who don't prioritize deep work, it's still an important skill for most of us to cultivate.
Definitely. It's all about figuring out what works best for you and your specific type of work.
So even in those fields where you think you have to be constantly connected to be successful,
Yeah,
deep work can still be beneficial.
absolutely. There was a really interesting study where a Harvard professor had a group of management consultants disconnect from email more often.
Management consultants?
I know, right?
Those are the people who live in their inboxes.
You'd think so, right? But they're known for being like constantly connected.
Right.
But what the study found was that all that connectivity, it wasn't really as essential as they thought. Clients weren't actually demanding those instant replies all the time.
Okay.
And the consultants were much more focused, way more productive when they weren't, chained to their inboxes.
So even in those fast-paced, like client-facing jobs, there's still a place for deep work.
Absolutely.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's be real. In our world where everything's like go, go, go,
Right.
finding the time for deep work can feel impossible.
Oh, it definitely takes effort. You got to be intentional about it. And that's where Cal Newport's strategies come in.
Okay.
In his book, he lays out this framework for actually integrating deep work into your life.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your work style is, like how crazy busy your schedule is.
So tell me more. How do we actually do this?
Well, the first step is recognizing that deep work is a skill.
Okay.
And just like any skill, it takes practice.
Right. You wouldn't run a marathon without training first.
Exactly.
Unless you wanted to like totally crash and burn halfway through.
Exactly. Deep work is similar. You got to train your mind for that focus, just like you train your body for, physical endurance.
So where do we even begin?
Newport, he outlines 4 philosophies for how to actually incorporate deep work into your life.
Okay.
And they offer different approaches depending on your needs and what you prefer.
Lay them on me. I'm ready to upgrade my work habits.
Okay, so the first one is called the monastic philosophy.
Monastic. Okay.
And this one's for the people who really want to go all in on deep work.
So like basically become a digital monk.
Well, not that extreme.
Okay.
But it's all about carving out dedicated blocks of time just for deep work.
Okay.
And minimizing all distraction.
No emails, no social media, no news feed.
Exactly. Just pure, uninterrupted focus on the task at hand.
Okay. I can see how that would be effective.
Yeah, you might want to start with shorter blocks at first,
Mm-hmm.
and then gradually increase the time as you get better at concentrating.
Yeah, like building up those deep work muscles.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those of us who can't just, disappear into a monastery of focus?
Right.
What if our work requires us to be a bit more flexible, a bit more responsive?
For those folks, there's the bimodal philosophy.
Bimodal.
This one's about shifting back and forth between periods of really intense, focused work
Okay.
and periods of more like open-ended, flexible work.
So you might have like a deep work week
Right.
where you minimize distractions and really drill down into a project,
Yeah.
and then a collaboration week
Right.
where you're more available for meetings and communication.
Exactly. It allows you to tap into those different modes of working and find a rhythm that works for you.
I like that. Okay, this next one, the rhythmic philosophy.
Yes,
This one really speaks to my love of routine.
I can see that.
Tell me more.
So the rhythmic philosophy is all about consistency.
Okay.
You basically establish a regular routine for deep work,
Okay.
and you turn it into this ritual that signals to your brain,
Like it's go time.
yeah, exactly, it's time to focus.
So maybe it's every morning from 8:00 to 11:00. You go to your dedicated workspace, noise-canceling headphones on, dive into your most important task.
Yeah, perfect
It
example.
becomes like an automatic habit.
Exactly, just like brushing your teeth or going for a run.
I like that. Makes it easier.
Yeah, it removes that decision fatigue of, when and where to do deep work. It's just part of your routine.
Okay, and then the last one, the journalistic philosophy. This one sounds a little intimidating, to be honest.
Yeah, this one's definitely for the more disciplined among us.
Okay.
It's about fitting in deep work whenever you can, even if it's just for like short bursts.
So squeezing in of those moments of focus between meetings, travel, all the demands of a crazy schedule.
Exactly. It takes a lot of mental flexibility and the ability to just like switch into that deep work mode really quickly.
Like a journalist who has to file a story on a tight deadline no matter where they are or what's happening around them.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we have 4 philosophies to choose from. That's helpful. But once we've picked our approach, how do we actually like make deep work happen?
That's where Newport's specific tactics come in.
Okay.
These are like practical strategies to make your deep work sessions more effective.
Okay, give me the good stuff. I'm taking notes.
First up, you need to create a distraction-free environment.
Okay.
Whether it's a dedicated office, a quiet library, even just a corner of your home, find a place where you can really minimize interruptions.
So that means turning off notifications, right?
Absolutely. Phone, computer, all of it. Those constant pings and dings, they're kryptonite to deep work.
Right, they pull you right out of that flow.
Exactly. Newport also talks about some techniques for dealing with like procrastination and boredom.
Ooh, those are tough ones.
They're two of the biggest enemies of focus.
I struggle with both of those, for sure. Sometimes I just can't seem to get started, even when I know I have important work to do.
Yeah, I get that. One technique he recommends is the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
Right, breaking down your work into those 25-minute intervals of focused work with little breaks in between,
Right.
it can make big tasks feel less overwhelming.
It's amazing how much you can get done when you commit to those focused 25-minute bursts.
Right.
So what other tactics does he recommend?
He also talks about the importance of like ritualizing your deep work practice.
What does that mean?
It's about creating a set of routines and habits that basically tell your brain, okay, it's time to focus now.
So it could be something as simple as like making a cup of tea or lighting a candle before I start working.
Exactly. It's about creating those triggers that help you transition into that deep work mode.
I like that. It's not just about forcing yourself to focus. It's about creating an environment and a mindset that supports deep work.
You got it. It's all about being intentional, creating a system that actually works for you.
This is all great advice for individual productivity, but how does deep work fit into a workplace where, collaboration and teamwork are so important?
Good question.
Isn't there a risk that we'll be seen as like unapproachable or antisocial if we're always heads down in deep work?
It's a valid concern.
Right.
And the key is to find that balance.
Okay.
Deep work isn't about becoming a hermit, isolating yourself from your team.
Right.
It's about being deliberate about when you need that deep focus and when you need to be more collaborative.
So it's about setting boundaries and then communicating those boundaries clearly to your team.
Exactly. You could schedule specific blocks of time for deep work and let your colleagues know, hey, I'll be less responsive during these times.
Okay.
And then balance that with dedicated times for meetings, brainstorming sessions, all that collaborative stuff.
So you're not rejecting collaboration.
Right.
You're just being strategic about how and when you engage in it.
Exactly. And you know what? When you're able to focus deeply and produce that high-quality work during your deep work sessions, you actually bring more value to the table when you do collaborate.
It's like you're sharpening your saw before you go out to cut down a tree.
Perfect analogy. Deep work allows you to hone your skills, your insights, your ideas,
Okay.
so you can contribute way more effectively to the team effort.
And by protecting your time and attention,
Right.
you're less likely to bring that, attention residue into your interactions with colleagues.
Exactly.
You can be more present, more engaged.
You're getting it. Deep work isn't just about individual productivity. It's a philosophy that can transform how we approach work, learning, even our relationships with others.
I'm seeing that now, how deep work can actually make us better at collaborating and connecting.
Yeah, and that's an important point. Deep work isn't about shutting yourself off from the world.
Right.
It's about choosing to focus your energy and attention in a way that lets you do your best work, be your best self.
It's about aligning your actions with your values and priorities.
Absolutely, and that's a powerful idea to keep in mind as we explore the specifics of how to make deep work a reality in our lives.
I'm ready to hear more, but I think we're about at the end of part 2 of our deep dive.
You're right.
What key message do you want our listeners to take away from this part of our conversation?
I'd say the big takeaway is that deep work isn't just some productivity hack.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of life.
Okay.
It's about committing to being more intentional with our time and attention so we can do work that matters and live lives that are more fulfilling.
Okay, so we've covered why deep work is so valuable, how it helps us learn faster, boost our productivity, even become better collaborators.
Hmm.
But now let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually do it.
Right, the practical stuff.
Exactly. How do we make deep work a part of our everyday lives?
It's all about building those deep work muscles we talked about.
Right. Got to get those brains in shape.
Exactly. And Cal Newport, he gives us some really great tactics in his book. It's like having a personal trainer for your mind.
Okay, I'm ready for my brain workout. What's step 1?
Well, remember, deep work is a skill.
Mm.
It takes practice. It's not about instantly becoming a focused ninja or anything.
So I don't need to shave my head and move to a mountaintop.
Unless you want to. But seriously, it's all about starting small, gradually increasing the intensity and duration of your deep work sessions over time.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we structure these deep work sessions? What does that actually look like?
Newport suggests starting with a distraction-free environment. Find a place where you can minimize interruptions as much as possible.
Okay.
Think about what works best for you. Maybe it's a quiet home office, a little nip in a library, even a coffee shop with a good vibe, whatever helps you focus.
And of course, turning off all those digital distractions.
Oh, absolutely. Got to silence those notifications, put your phone on, do not disturb, tell your family or roommates, hey, don't interrupt me for the next hour.
Mm.
It's about creating that space where your brain can really zero in on the task at hand.
It sounds so simple, but it's amazing how those little pings and dings can just completely derail your focus.
Oh yeah, they're sneaky little attention thieves.
So what other strategies can we use to make our deep work sessions more effective? What else does Newport recommend?
He talks about having a clear goal for each deep work session.
Okay.
What exactly do you want to achieve during this focus time? Write it down, make it specific. It'll help us stay on track and see your progress.
So it's like having a roadmap for your brain. You know where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. But, what about those times when procrastination or boredom inevitably creep in?
Oh, tell me about. Those are my biggest struggles. Sometimes I just can't seem to get started, even when I know the work is important.
I hear you. Remember the Pomodoro technique we talked about before?
Yeah, the 25-minute work sprints.
Right. That could be a game changer for breaking down big, daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Right.
It's also a good way to trick your brain into focusing. You tell yourself, okay, I can do anything for 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And often you end up getting in the flow and making way more progress than you expected.
Like a mental hack.
Exactly. Another strategy is to schedule your deep work sessions for the time of day when you're naturally most alert.
Oh, yeah, some people are morning people, some are night owls.
Exactly. Experiment and find what works best for you.
Makes sense. But what if you've done all that, created the perfect environment, you're working during your peak hours, and you still just can't seem to muster the motivation?
That's where the power of ritual comes in.
Ritual.
Yeah, Newport talks about creating rituals around your deep work practice, like a pre-game routine for your brain.
Interesting.
It's about setting the stage for focus. Could be something as simple as making a cup of tea, putting on your noise-canceling headphones, even just doing a quick meditation to clear your head, whatever helps signal to your brain that it's time to get down to business.
It's like creating those positive associations with deep work. So it's not something you dread, it's something you look forward to.
Exactly. And as you make deep work a regular part of your routine, you'll actually find that it becomes easier and more enjoyable over time.
Okay, that's encouraging.
Yeah, those mental muscles will get stronger, you'll be able to focus more intensely and for longer periods.
I like the sound of that. So to wrap up our deep dive into deep work, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners who are, ready to embrace this idea, ready to make it happen in their lives?
I'd say start small.
Okay.
Don't try to change everything overnight. Pick one of Newport's philosophies. Try out the tactics we've talked about. See what clicks for you.
It's about finding what works best for you.
Exactly. Remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Well said. And as we all embark on this journey of deep work, let's keep in mind the incredible benefits that are waiting for us on the other side, Increased productivity, more creativity, a deeper sense of fulfillment in the work we do.
It's worth it.
It really is. So, what are you waiting for? Dive in and discover the power of deep work for yourself. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. 6TA.